starting the recording. And now I'd like to introduce Joan Butler, who is here talking to us about Enchanted Gardens.
Well, good morning and thank you, Jill. It's really a pleasure to be here today to talk about the programs that we offer. I'm Joan Butler. My friend Jana Milbacher and I are avid gardeners, plant collectors, garden designers, and writers. And we've presented programs at flower shows, botanic gardens, horticultural societies, and many, many garden clubs and libraries in the Northeast. Our programs are richly illustrated PowerPoint presentations, and they feature our love of horticulture, design, and garden travel. And they inspire and delight both new and seasoned gardeners. Handouts are provided for each topic, and our programs can be presented virtually or in person. And let me just give you a rundown of what we have to offer. New for fall 2022, a program about outstanding natives, and it features native shrubs and trees that add beauty and interest to your garden and benefit birds, butterflies, and pollinators. Birdscaping Home Sweet Habitat. Learn about the benefits and the joys of creating eco-friendly garden habitats for birds that include native plants vital for food and nesting sites. And spring perennials. Extend your gardening season. Discover the many lovely perennials that add colorful flowers and interesting foliage to the early season garden. Fallscaping. Fallscaping was new in fall of 2021. Discover plants and design strategies that will guide you as you create a vibrant fall garden. Create your own shady retreats using techniques that will help you lighten up shady corners, incorporating plants that thrive in low light situations, art objects, seating, and water features. And sunny perennial borders. Learn about design strategies and about perennials that will help you create textural gardens with colorful blooms that will last from spring through fall. And spring ephemerals. This program really explores the beauty and the unique adaptations of our early blooming native woodlanders. And it also discusses in more depth those plants that will easily adapt to the home garden. The garden can be a magical place even in winter. Learn how to extend the beauty of your garden through all 4 seasons. And pots with pizzazz. Jazzy containers are the jewelry of the garden, elevating it from good to great. Beautiful containers can enhance your garden space. Learn about different propagation techniques and that includes growing from seed or cuttings or divisions. And this is a combination PowerPoint lecture and demonstration. And a collector's guide to hosta. Design a beautiful garden based on color, texture, and placement of incredible hosta and companion plants. Now, my friend Jana has authored 3 books on garden tourism. Her PowerPoint presentations offer armchair tours of the best public gardens, arboretums, historic mansion gardens, and nurseries in the Northeast and beyond. So with her tours, you can travel near the Garden Tourist Northeast, Artist's Garden in New England, and Satisfying Your Plant Lust, which is about the best specialty nurseries in the Northeast. And you can travel far. The Garden Tourist Hudson River Valley, the Garden Tourist Florida, and Decked Out for the Holidays, which includes historic mansions and also gardens decorated for the holiday season. And you can travel even farther. Head over to Great Britain for 2 virtual tours of historically important gardens at castles, estates, and botanic gardens. Please visit our website, enchantedgardensdesign.com, and there you'll learn more about our programs and about us, and check out our blog. And thank you very much, and happy gardening, everyone.
Thank you, Joan. That was lovely.
Whew.
It was terrific. Thank you.
Yes, I know you're here. I saw your name. There she is. Hi, Deb. How are you?
Good morning. So
You want to share screen?
I do want to share my screen, and I just need to tell you all that I'm coming from Hanover, New Hampshire today, where I am watching my 13-month-old granddaughter and 2 dogs. So I'm hoping it all goes smoothly for you, because it's one of those situations where who knows what could happen, but I am prepared.
Zoom, we all have these issues.
Okay. So yes, I would love to share my screen.
All right,
Thank
so you see the little green button at the bottom?
Yeah.
And you can just click on that. There
Okay.
you go.
Take me a minute to make this smaller.
Okay. This is why we allow 5 minutes for these things, because they take time.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, you're all set.
here we go. Let's see if I can.
My name is Debbie from Saved by the Garden Journeys, and it's really an honor to share program information with you all today. I'm a lifelong gardener, healthcare provider with a passion for science and nature, history and architecture, and of course, gardens. So you'll be seeing an introduction video, and then I'll come back and share the 2 Garden Journey presentations that are offered this year.
Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm the creator of Saved by the Garden. Looking for something inspiring and engaging? Join Saved by the Garden Journeys. With Saved by the Garden, you'll be virtually whisked off to remarkable gardens throughout the United States and beyond. Presentations include an array of breathtaking gardens, each highlighted for their unique characteristics and special exhibits. Each garden program features 3 gardens in different regions and growing zones. Because I know some of you are curious, just like me, we're going to take a deep dive into some of the special exhibits. You'll discover fun facts and details that you can share with family and friends. Botanical nuggets, some interesting history, and some information about the design elements in each garden. Gardens are truly captivating spaces. They are full of beauty, life, and wonder, and provide benefits for health and wellness. Woven into each of those garden journeys are the restorative benefits of each garden and the supporting science behind them. Ready to be whisked off to remarkable gardens throughout the United States and beyond? Join me, Saved by the Garden Journeys.
And so there are 2 garden journeys to choose from this year. The first is Tales of a Gardener's Journey, and is truly a feast for the eyes, as we will virtually discover the beauty of the Teton wildflowers together, the festive horticultural sculptures of the South, and the gorgeous Italian Renaissance gardens of historic New England. And then there's Unhidden Gems. And the idea for Unhidden Gems came about when I realized that some very important and uniquely historic gardens with societal significance are hiding, right in plain sight, and are really filled with fascinating plants, ideas to share, and have so much to teach us. In the Unhidden Gems program, we will together virtually journey through the surprising shapes and colorful blooms of the Great Southwest, the fascinating plants of the Jurassic period, and the creatively designed secret gardens found right here in New England. So thank you for your time, and you can find out more at savedbythegarden.org. I'm happy to speak with any of you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Hello, I'm Deborah Chudd, and I'm offering Pete Outolf 3 ways. A Pete Outolf story chronicles my 5-year transformation from a non-gardening plant illiterate with a garden I hated into a lecturer with the world's largest database of his plant combinations and a garden I enjoy. I presented this story to many green organizations, including Delaware Botanic Gardens and Toronto Botanical Garden, both of which have Outolf designed sections. How I got from non-gardener to my current garden database and view forms the first part of my presentation. The second part covers the historical context in which Adolf came of age as a landscape designer. And the final part provides an introduction to his design principles, particularly his approach to structure and the special balance he achieves between coherence and contrast through the application of certain rules for combining structure and color. In Not Your Mother's Garden, I take my audience on a photo tour of my own highly unusual Pete Outhoff style garden, and I describe the design principles underlying it. Many of the plants are unfamiliar, even to experienced and knowledgeable gardeners. The new perennials to which you'll be introduced were all taken from Pete Outhoff's canon of plants, and they exhibit the qualities valued by Pete and his cohort of new perennialists. So what's new about new perennials and what can they do for you? Walk through my garden with me to find out. All of my Design Dilemma workshops are unique because they focus on members' own gardens. People submit photos of their dilemmas in advance to receive input based on Outhoff's approach. By way of response, I create a PowerPoint of proposed solutions grounded in the design theory of Pete Outhoff. Each participant receives a PDF of her segment of the workshop. Here's an example from a workshop I held last fall. This gardener wanted to make the area more naturalistic without sacrificing all of her current plants. First, I suggested removing the stump and shrubs, which took up space without contributing naturalistic effects. Then I checked my database to see what plants Pete had used with the existing perennials. The liberated space allowed me to move plants around, increase the number of some, decrease others, and add one that Pete had used with several of them. Finally, I created a mock-up of my concept. The gardener received a PDF that documented the entire process. And that's Pete Outhoff 3 ways. For a chance to win a free workshop for your club, email me at dfchud, C-H-U-D, @gmail.com with the raffle and your club's name in the subject line. The winner will be announced Saturday, April 2nd after the 1 p.m. drawing. Thank you.
I'm Mike and this is Angelina. We are co-owners of Rose Solutions, which is a landscape consulting company that specializes in roses. We present lectures, workshops, and seminars. And in the old days, we used to come in person, but in the new days, we can come virtually. Either way, it's the same program. It's whatever is good for you and your club.
We're also authors of 2 books, Roses for New England and Rose Gardening Season by Season. And we're publishers of a quarterly e-newsletter called the Northeast Rose Gardener.
We have 10 programs that deal with various aspects of rose horticulture. Our most popular program is this one, 6 Simple Steps to Successful Rose Gardening, where we deep dive into rose horticulture, and in 6 simple steps, we'll explain to you and your club how to grow roses successfully in your gardens and your home gardens.
Another popular program is Roses for New England, and this is based on our book, which you can see here. And we follow the book and we include the 6 simple steps, but we also talk about how to prune, how to plant, and how to winter protect your gardens. We also introduce you to some sustainable rose gardens, rose varieties that you can plant in your New England gardens.
Now, David Austin's English roses are usually popular here in the Northeast. They're usually popular everywhere. And this program was developed by us in concert with David Austin Roses in Albrighton in England. Our presentation goes behind the scenes and covers the unique Austin breeding program that focuses on hybridizing healthy, fragrant, old-fashioned roses.
Now, this is Radler Roses, Knockouts and Beyond. Will Radler gave us all the knockout roses, and in this program, we'll talk about knockouts, but did you know that he also introduced over 35 other varieties that are just as disease resistant and winter hardy? So we'll show you those roses and suggest which ones are good for your gardens. Now we have 2 a la carte travel programs, and this is one of them. This is a virtual garden tour, and we take you to 5 gardens. We start with the gardens of David Austin Roses in England, and then we'll take you to Italy. We'll take you to a rose garden in Rome, another in Florence, and there's a spectacular rose garden right outside of Paris that we'll visit. We end the tour in Canada at La Roserie at the Montreal Botanical Garden, which is a beautiful garden and within driving distance of New England.
Now you can go to our website, www.rosesolutions.net, and you'll get a complete list of all of our programs, all 10 of them, along with detailed descriptions. You can learn more about us, you can learn more about roses, and you can contact us. All our contact information is there. And we look forward to hearing from you. We're done.
Hi.
Thank you both. Isla, do you have a slideshow?
I don't. You're just going to be watching me with my green screen behind me.
Okay, that's perfect.
I love what the Garden Club Federation of Massachusetts has done with the speaker presentation day. This is really rich, and how lucky we are to have had 2 years of practicing on virtual presentations. I'm here today to, can you see me on full screen?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yep.
I can't
Yeah.
see you on full screen. I think I'm just going to say that I wish that I was here also as one of the 150 different individuals watching this, because each one of these so far is just fantastic. I have 2 programs on plant history that I present both to garden clubs and other organizations. And they're for the spot where you have time for plant history. Most of you are looking at our gardens as they exist in the 21st century, some of them interpretations of 16th century, 17th century gardens. I like to look at the individual plants. For the last 10 years, I've been presenting journeys with a particular plant through time, both through botanical evolution and how they've been used by the various cultures that they found themselves in at time. And usually it's about 3,500 years of watching a plant be used in different ways by the culture that it finds itself in. I happen to be a gardener, garden traveler, garden lover, flower ranger, but particularly I've become engaged with the history of individual plants. I started with my presentation on tulips on this side. They happen to have been only, and I underline only, things of beauty, but they get used in different cultures as spiritual icons in Persia, secular icons in the Ottoman Empire. They become economic powerhouse or parts of an economic powerhouse in the Netherlands in the 16th, 17th century. And now we simply find them as a lovely garden plant. We put in tulip bulbs, we watch them grow, and we don't usually stop to think of all the places they've been and what they've been. My most recent presentation is on the journey of the chrysanthemum. And I use this journey to stop and look at plant evolution, not just the chrysanthemum, but what it meant to be at the beginning of our global development and become part of the plant kingdom. Then I move us through the breakup of the continents and find ourselves in the Far East in China. And we look at the very complex and interesting way in which the chrysanthemum was used by the early Chinese culture and the later Chinese culture as medicine, as pesticides, as food, as beverage, as cultural icon, as garden plant. We look at the history of their hybridizing, and then we go with the Chinese to Japan, and we follow the chrysanthemum through the development of hybridizing, plant exhibitions. Would you believe that there have been horticultural exhibitions since 910 AD every year in Japan. We think that the annual New England Flower Show is a thing of beauty. Well, they've been doing it for 1100 years, long time. I'm not sure if my math is right on that one. Then I follow the chrysanthemum through that time in history when we were hunting plants, sending plants around the world to bring them back. I get to look at all these different aspects of history and culture through the journey of one plant. I would look forward to presenting to your garden club. I love doing this. I will do it in person or I will do it virtually. And I thank you for your time. I hope I'm close to my limit.
Very good.
Thank,
Thank you, Isla.
thank you. Glad you've been able to be here.
You got a nice comment from someone in the chat that said that they loved your tulip comment
Great.
conference. Okay, all right, so our next speaker is Christy Dustman. Christy, are you here? Say hello.
Yes, I am, and I do have something to a screen to share.
Okay, so we've done this before.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you see it as full screen?
Yep, we can.
Excellent. So good morning, everyone. It's such a sad day outside, but this is very exciting to think about gardens. And I have a landscape design and maintenance company, and I also love to teach. So I'm a designer, pruner, and speaker. I am a design winner. I have a number of certifications if anyone is interested in that. But mostly I'm a very passionate gardener who in some ways likes plants more than people. So I do have some areas of interest and expertise. One of them is I have a strong interest in Japanese gardens. So I have a lecture on Japanese inspired gardens. It's not just putting a Japanese maple and a lantern in your own garden. It's really I talk about how to bring that style to your own garden here in the Northeast. I have a strong interest in conifers, and one of my lectures is considering a conifer as an actual living sculpture. I also talk about my passion for conifers as a group of plants that are often misunderstood and overly sheared. Here's a couple examples from my conifer lecture. You'll see that I have a real tongue-in-cheek sense of humor when I'm talking. I think I enjoy having people laugh. So I love taking pictures of arborvitae that are in rows. And so here I'm considering, are these arborvitaes actually sculptures as opposed to just a row of arborvitae? Or is this a sculpture, this double blue atlas cedar used as an arch? And what factors do we consider when looking at a conifer to see if it's worthy to be a sculpture? So my lectures tend to have a lot of photos, both from here and travels that I've taken abroad, and also salient information. I'm very interested in objects in the garden, so I have a lecture on how to consider putting objects, both functional and artistic, into our gardens. So why do we have objects in the garden? Here we might have a chaise lounge. And here we might put something in a garden to bring that spirit to the garden. So again, I use photos from travels that I've had as well as in my own garden, which has been featured in Fine Gardening and on multiple garden tours. I love talking about garden and planting design, really how to think about space, how to think about plants as structure. So my focus is less on bloom and color and more about what the plant has to offer in terms of the structure and what is needed that design is not magic, that there really is thought behind it. And I'm thinking a lot about a plant as a living form. So it's a different way of considering and thinking about design than what you might be used to if you're just looking at a list of 30 plants. I love talking about design principles, how I go about thinking about things, seeing things, to make a visually coherent and pleasing garden and landscape space. Here's just a couple of slides from that particular lecture. I like thinking about balance. So, you know, how does balance work in the garden? You've probably heard the terms using things asymmetrically or symmetrically, and then there's also radial balance. This is a lecture I gave at the Boston Flower Show a few years ago. Again, these are pictures that I've taken from my own travels. And then I do use my own garden as an example in lectures. This is a very early stage at my own house about 14 years ago when I had boulders arrive that scared the neighbors. So I'm actually showing how I built my own garden, and garden clubs will both, you know, I can do a lecture for you, and I also love to have people come and visit my garden. Like I said, I use a lot of conifers, objects, and sculpture, and it can be really engaging to walk through and get some new ideas about what to put in your garden that you might have hidden in your basement or your garage right this minute. So these are some of the topics that I like to speak about. But mostly, like I said, I like to share my passion. I like to share a sense of humor, and really engage with people where they're at, where you guys are at. So, and I also like to do hands-on pruning workshops. So both in person and on Zoom. So feel free to give me, to contact me via email or from my website.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you so much. Okay, good. All right. We're running a little bit behind, but we're doing pretty well. Our next speaker is Erin Espinoza. Erin, want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Happy spring.
Yes.
I
outside. Perfect. You're all set.
Yes, great. Yeah, my name's Erin Espinosa. I am a farmer, career farmer by day, and in my very few free time, I teach horticulture at a local prison. And I'm here to talk to you today about the organization I do that with and about our presentations that we offer to garden clubs. So we every year present to anywhere from 5 to 10 garden clubs in the area. And we tend to tailor our organization to the garden club's interests and need because our work is so broad. So I'm sharing with you an example of a presentation that I recently did just a few weeks ago. And the New Garden Society is an organization that teaches horticulture as a transformative tool. And we do all of this in on-site prison gardens in 3 to 4 correctional facilities around Boston and Greater Boston. And so we run a weekly horticulture program at these prisons, April through November, teaching a horticulture curriculum that's pretty consistent with what you might see in the Master Gardeners Association or any other gardening entity like that. And our presentations tend to be full of stories and photos from the field that we often cannot share via social media or websites or anything because we have security restrictions. But the great thing about our presentation is we can share photos and words from our students to all of you because we're in person with you. So we tend to fill it with photos that we can't share elsewhere. Right here, I have an example of just one of the gardens north of Boston that we started just this past year. We, as an organization, teach a combination of male and female and some youth in the facilities we teach at. And we do all of this because gardens are extremely therapeutic, as all of you probably have experienced. And also the green industry filled with landscapers, farmers, land care workers is growing. We all saw in the pandemic in 2020 that everybody flocked to their gardens and built them up beautifully. And this is such a booming industry right now. So we're using this growth in the local green industry as a way to engage people who are currently incarcerated to seek those job skills, learn the knowledge in horticulture that they can use to secure jobs after they're released from prison. You'll see some quotes and some examples. And then most importantly, in our presentation, we go through our educational approaches. So how we actually teach horticulture in a correctional facility using some of these key approaches, including participatory, eco-literacy, emancipatory, and trauma-informed. And we highlight this in garden clubs because many of our garden club members are also educators, whether it's teaching your grandchildren how to garden in your own personal garden, or if you're doing it with your fellow garden club members. And these are just some of the approaches that we think are very applicable to all gardeners. And I will leave it there. I will say that we offer the presentation virtually and in person. We always prefer in person, as I'm sure most of you do. So it's a 40-minute presentation followed by a 20-minute Q&A. And I will say the Q&A is always my favorite part. That tends to be where the excitement is and everyone just gets really into the presentation. And on that note, I'm happy to share references from previous presentations we've done with garden clubs upon request. I will type my email address into the chat, which I'm sure you already have, but just in case. And I think I'm gonna leave it at that.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah.
That was really good. Lots of good comments in the chat about your presentation too.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Hawkinson. I'm coordinator of the Massachusetts Master Gardener Association Speakers Bureau. And today I'd like to explain to you why we think we're an excellent resource for your garden club presentations. So our first reason is our experience. Our speakers deliver over 100 lectures annually, and we've been doing this for about 10 years, so our speakers certainly have the background. The second reason is our speakers are all trained and knowledgeable. They're all certified master gardeners. They all have years of experience and hands-on knowledge. Many also have advanced horticultural degrees. And some of them also teach in our home horticulture program and our home gardening webinars. The third reason is the wide range of topics. We have over 40 topics, currently actually 41, and we offer lists of these on our website, but for your convenience, we've grouped them into a couple general categories so that you can easily find what you need. But each year we try to expand our program. And this year, some of our new topics are on specific plant types, such as hydrangeas, peonies, blueberries, and raspberries. And then we have other topics such as vegetable history, inviting wildlife into your garden. And then we've offered a second organic gardening program. Our fourth reason is our affordable pricing. We are also a nonprofit, just as many of you are, And we know how important it is to manage costs. So for one of our programs, the total cost is $225. And our final reason is that we provide a full service approach. Our contracts include a 1-hour lecture with time for questions and answers. We can do it in person, and many of our programs are also available for Zoom. If you also allow the public into your programs, we provide a publicity package, and we also promote your event. And it's easy to book a program. Just let me know your desired topics, the dates you're interested in, and the time of your presentation, and I can check speaker availability. You can reach me at speakers@massmastergardeners.org. And that's it.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for staying on time too. You have to have a few seconds extra. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to Mary Hayes. Mary, I know you must be here.
Hi, Mary Beth Hayes. I thank you for having all of us. I appreciate this opportunity to meet all the garden clubs again and promote things that we all offer. So I have some slides I will share. Says I cannot screen share while other participant is sharing.
Huh. All right. There's nobody else sharing that I'm aware of.
Can you see the screen?
Lou, are you?
I have a message that Lou's iPad is sharing.
Yeah, all
see
right. All right, there you go.
Oh, good.
You want to try it again, Mary?
Yep. Are folks seeing that?
Yeah.
How about now?
There you go. Now we got it.
Okay. So I want to quickly, I have about a dozen slides to show, and I will go through the 5 or 6 programs that I'm offering this year, but I'll also say that I'm super happy to discuss with clubs developing some custom program for your club. And I've done that. That's probably a third of all the workshops and presentations I do are, I talk with the VP in the club and decide what would they like to see and do a custom program too. But one of my programs is creating your own cutting garden. And it's kind of a simple and marvelous thing to do. So I encourage people to do it. This is me in my cutting garden, but it could be you, in your cutting garden. And this sort of shows it. So it's a program where I have a slideshow and talk about where to site it and what to plant and the best maintenance and harvesting, conditioning flowers and lots of things. So I cover a lot of ground, and I also do a spiral bouquet demo at the end. That's sort of an optional thing. So you can see once you are collecting your bucket full of flowers, you can do beautiful things with them. And the other program, another one I have is called Green Alternatives to Floral Foam. Does anybody know who's this designer on this picture? And if you do, would you please write her name in the chat box? So we'll get back to that. So she's designing this is probably in the 1940s, in this container with chicken wire. So just kind of wanted to, I know that GCFM is very concerned with environmental impacts and climate change and protecting the environment. And I think that this is all part of that too, that there's a reliance in the floral industry on floral foam, and we need to look at other things because there's some adverse environmental effects of floral foam. And you can see on my slide, in England particularly, they're banning floral foam from various applications. So I bring and demonstrate different options, these reusable plastic forms, pin frogs, hairpin frogs, chicken wire, variety of different things. There's actually 2 very new products, or at least a new application, if not a new product, that a woman from Sudbury is importing from New Age Floral. So she sells agro wool, which, as it is shown on there, is this interesting thing made out of basalt and completely compostable. And same size as a green floral foam, probably 2 to 3 times the cost. And then there's another one called Oshun Pouch, which is a shredded coir, coconut husk, put inside a pouch, and you sort of insert your stems into that. So I do a demo of these various mechanics and the pros and the cons. I would say we also, in this presentation, I talk a bit about life cycle assessment because there's impacts at every stage of a manufactured product. But I think it's very timely, and we should all know more options. So probably my most popular program is the embellished pumpkins. They start as these adorable little white Casparita pumpkins with the stem and vine. And we decorate on top of the pumpkin, there's no cutting the pumpkin, with some fresh flowers, dried flowers, succulents, air plants, evergreens, and make really cute things. I think they're super cute. They last for months because of the material that we're using, and you're not cutting in. So that's a great October, November program. Another one I offer is wreaths, head crowns, garlands. I include all of these because the mechanics are so similar. And once you've sort of learned the mechanics of one, you can then go and make other ones and make them larger or spread them on your table. Put them around a candle, put them on your doggie. That's my dog, Caroline, who is 16 years old. So that the trick with this one is it can be difficult to finish a complete one within an hour. So we might do a demi crown, maybe, or a demi wreath, and a third of it is done in the class. But there are options, and it depends on the expertise of your members, how familiar they are with making wreaths. I also offer Whirlwind Tour of Begonias, which covers houseplants, terrariums, potted plants in your garden, propagation, sources. Who cannot love the foliage of begonias? Their leaves are stunning and beautiful. So, and that, I also have you can see here, a little propagated begonia. And that's part of my program is we propagate a leaf or rhizome. So people can go home with their little baby begonia. This is tuberous begonias on the left, which you should be thinking about right now. Get some samba or some bossa nova tubers and get them going. And that picture on the right shows their gorgeous, gorgeous flowers kind of at the end of the summer. Okay, so my last slide, I think, or second to last, I have some new ideas for 2022, which is petite florals. And again, this is because it can be hard to have both for cost reasons and time reasons, to finish a nice floral arrangement within an hour. So I thought, well, if you do bud vases, if you do May Day posies, you can sort of use lots of floral design elements and components, but at a lower number of stems, lower cost, more affordable for more clubs. So that's kind of my option for this year, is to do one or the other. And again, you can do negative space, line and mass. You can do spiral bouquet and a little tiny miniature bouquet. All those design elements can be done on that petite scale. So that's kind of what I'm really looking forward to doing in this year. And I encourage everyone to give May Day posies to your neighbors on May 1st this year. So I have the information on the speakers gallery, and please contact me if you're interested in any of these programs or developing a custom one. So did anyone in the chat know who that designer was? Where's the chat? How do I cancel share is the question.
If you go up to the top of your screen, usually there's an option to stop share.
Yeah, there should be, shouldn't there?
Yeah.
We had Lady Bird Johnson and
Nope.
a guess of Constance Spry.
Correct, Constance Spry, whoever you are, you win a prize. Send me your name and I'll send you something.
Christina Farron.
Okay.
All right. Good. Thank you so much, Mary. Okay.
Trying to stop my screen share. Oh, there we go. Stop share.
There you go.
Thank
Okay,
you very
good.
Lisa Oberholzer G, and I'm a floral designer, and I might have been at your club at some point, and I'm just so happy that we could gather again now to hopefully gather in person. So I do offer two options now. I've been doing the demonstrations in person, and then now I also offer a floral journey. So my background is that I've been doing floral designing. I freelance in Boston, New York, and Connecticut now, and I do give demonstrations. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a very
Is that you, Seal Robinson?
let's see. I'm going to start. Oh, someone else is sharing.
Yes, somebody else is sharing their screen right now. So if it's, yeah, okay, there we go. Good. All right. Thank you. Okay, you should be good now.
Okay. All right. All right. So is everyone seeing that okay?
We can't see any.
Do you see this? Do you see my my slides?
Nope, we see you.
Oh, okay.
Hit the share screen again because sometimes it doesn't work the first time.
Okay, let me try to go back. Oh no. Sorry. No, you don't want to see my Excel. I can't seem to get into the screen again.
Okay.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, we can see your face. We just can't see the screen share.
All right. Let me just try for one more second. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Let's see.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me. I didn't want to get a. Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that.
Right.
So I've had a background. I've studied in Longwood Gardens, and basically I love traveling. I lived in Switzerland for over 10 years, and so my presentation is called Floral Design: Seeing Beyond the Vase. And what I mean is I like creating objects, and this is more like floral art. I think a lot of you are familiar with that. And just to think beyond the vase, how can I design something and create a design that's not only using the vessel and putting water in and designing. As you previously heard, people are not using floral foam as much as they used to. For a long time, I've been trying to use natural mechanics that involve wiring and also using glass tubes. And so that's something I've been doing for quite a while. And I do use some sort of sustainable foam when I need to. The designing part is actually using elements that you might have in your garden, things that are man-made, wiring, weaving, tying, things that you could create to make your vessel look different than what you usually use. And how do we embellish a vase to create it to make it look different? So here's me giving a lecture showing that, you know, you can make something out of a low-lying vessel and add tubes and add fun natural elements to make the design. And here I have one with crispadia. I love the less is more concept. You don't need tons of flowers to give an impact of your art, your floral art. Here I made a fan. It looks like an Art Deco fan, and I put tubes in there with some flowers. And as you can see, less is more. Not too many flowers, but the impact of having a different design that you might not see usually as a floral arrangement. Using pussy willows, binding them and using tubes to elevate flowers. Here I show you the full element of binding your pussy willows to cover that vase and adding elements within the vase. So I like using natural materials to embellish the vase. Here I have sort of like paddles here and beautiful orchids. So I think the idea is just being creative and finding a way to make your piece more interesting by creating elements that you add to your vase. This is a hanging element I created using elements I found in the garden, my twigs. I'm sure you have plenty of twigs now after winter. And just adding tubes in and flowers, and then this is something you could reuse. I love the idea of reusing things that you've created so that you could change it from a fall look to a spring look, and also just sustainability of having an item that you can reuse. Springtime is here, making a design that looks like a nest, for example. Hand tying bouquets is something I really learned at a shop in New York City. And we just did European designing, floral hand-tied bouquets. And here I am making a frame for my hand-tied bouquet at a lecture. And you see I'm inserting flowers. So I think this is good for you to see some of the ideas of when I say creating a frame for flowers, what does that mean? So I hope some of these photos will give you an idea of how I design and try to embellish the vase and to make it a little different in terms of what I've learned in all my journeys. So I mentioned I do give a floral journey to Europe or Asia. Those are online, Zoom, for an hour. And I give you an idea. You choose between Thailand, Japan, or I have a combination, Germany, Belgium. So this is an example of floral pictures I'll show you from the Thai market, where I had a week's time to learn with the floral designer at his Museum of Floral Culture in Bangkok. And we just made a tour of that, and I will show you the design elements that I learned. And then after that segment with the presentation, I show you a design live and that uses the techniques from that particular journey. This is the Germany and Belgium slide that uses hand-tied bouqueting and wiring elements and just creating different types of designs that don't require just the water in the vase. And that's it. So I had 3 minutes time. I hope I didn't go over. But my floral lecture is also usually clubs in like an hour. And I use my mileage from Cambridge, even though you might see the New York. So I'm from the Cambridge area, and it's usually an hour. So if you need more information, it'll be great if you just contact me and I'll let you know, the details of that. And again, it's just sort of designing out of the vase. And I hope to see some of you again. And I'm so glad that, we're having a better year, hopefully, where we can meet together. So great. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. Okay. Now you have to stop the sharing.
Okay. I will stop my share.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. There you go. All right. Thank you. Nancy Riggs is our next speaker. Hi, Nancy. There you are. Yeah, we can see your face.
Okay.
That was a little background interference.
Oh, no problem. Actually, I only have a visual aid, and that's an apple here, because my favorite program to do, and one that I've done quite a few times now, is an apple a day. And it's about apple trees and in orchards, and it's really about the industry in New England. I'm from the South, and when I first moved to New England, I was just overwhelmed with the varieties of apples up here. I was just familiar with a few down south. So I really got very interested in visiting apple orchards, and it's one of my favorite things to do, actually. And so I feature different orchards which have some special way of doing apple trees. For example, espalier, apple trees, espaliered, are cold controlled atmosphere storage. And even there's one that we go to where they make spirits out of apples, and that seems to entice people. So that is a really nice, a fun program to do, and it is my signature presentation. I also do gardening for the future, also known as retirement gardening, and I use my own yard as a backdrop for explaining things I have done to make gardening easier over the years, even what to do with hoses and how to set up a vegetable garden. I have a no-till vegetable garden, organic vegetable garden that I can actually ignore for quite a bit. And of course, that involves what you choose to grow in your vegetable garden. But we would take a tour of the yard, and I talk about many things that will make your life a little easier and keep you and your garden in balance. Carl Linnaeus.
Nancy, you're to talk to the microphone. We're losing you.
Okay. Carl Linnaeus, the man, the scientist, and the father of botany. I've only done this for my home club, but it's a pretty interesting program, I think, because he was the inventor of binary nomenclature, and it also includes a pictorial tour of the Linnaeus Garden in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where my sister lives. But he had a really fascinating life, so that's why I've read several biographies of Carl Linnaeus, so I try to make them interesting anyway. And then I do a From Field to Florist program, which discusses the way flowers get from one place, get to our grocery stores, and really come from all over the world. In fact, they make incredible journeys in big planes and overnight, and the whole flower industry has had a huge change in the way we've moved from locally grown flowers to flowers from various places in the world. Although we are getting back to a return to the people selling flowers in farmers markets and that sort of thing, which I am really delighted about. I also do the trees around us. I have taken a couple of tree stewardship courses, and I think trees are definitely my favorite element in the garden. I have a lot of specimen trees in my garden, and I cover basic tree identification, mainly trees that will grow well here in New England. I also have a quiz that you can take, that I think I would make the president of the club take, and maybe the program chair, and no pressure, of course, and just to review those trees that I've introduced. And I also, but if they don't want to do that, I will give them a tour of the trees in my yard in all 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. And that people seem to like that. No one has done the quiz yet. Oh well. Okay.
Nancy, I'm going to ask you, we're starting to run a little over the 3-minute
Oh,
limit.
okay, sorry.
That's
Okay,
okay.
that's fine. I do a program on better plant sales and also on vegetable gardening. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Okay, so Lou and Joanne, because we're running really seriously behind time, I'm going to ask you both to hold on. We'll let you go at the end, but I don't want to hold up everybody else. So
not a problem.
Good, thank you. Okay, so now our next speaker is Michelle Frank-Schukel. Michelle, are you here?
I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Hello. Thank you for your patience.
Of course. Thanks for having all of us. It's great to see you all. I see lots of familiar names and faces, and so appreciative to the Federation for having us all together. It really does feel like this community of gardeners is such a blessing in this really complex time. I am a nurse, a certified master gardener, a designer. I've been doing that since 2006, and all of my programs are designed to bring your members in to a different way of thinking about horticulture and consider ways that we can live well lives and enjoy our times in the garden and with flowers. And I'm going to share my screen here. And I've been editing because as we've been talking, because I've noticed that some of the screens, if you have this on split screen and you're seeing me on one side and my slides on the other, it might be hard to see. So I've been, as my colleagues have been talking here, I've been increasing the size of my text. So depending on how you're looking at me, you can get all the info you need. So my contact info is here. Natural Selections Gardens is my website, and I'll put that info in the chat. If you are a multimedia person and you've got your cell phone on hand along with your computer, the QR code on the screen will take you directly to the details of the programs that I offer. I have a wide range of programs in garden design and floral design, in conservation, horticulture, and botany. And I do workshops, lectures, and demonstrations. The lectures that I have that are new are in the pink. The Well-Traveled Bloom, the Cut Flowers Journey from Ground to Vase is a new one, along with weed identification and listening to the weeds, what they're telling us in our yards and gardens, and gardening in a changing climate. Ways to think about sort of living sustainably, gardening sustainably. We'll talk about rain gardens, some design features that we can consider as our weather changes, as our zones change for planting. And then some standard programs that I've been offering a long time that are all popular: native plants, pollinator talk, composting, where we get our hands on the different types of compost and the different stages and learn all about that. A talk on Field to Fork, the botany of everything we eat and sort of how it comes to us and all the things we can consider about how our food is grown. And Winter in the Yard is also particularly popular this past year. And even days like today, these transition days, so much is happening outside, and it's just so exciting to think about what's going on, even when it seems a little quiet in our gardens. I also offer some different demonstrations, simple centerpieces for every day, things that are easy to create for hopefully for entertaining in the either current days or near future. Botany of beverages is also really popular, particularly for couples, and we really delve into the horticulture of adult beverages, all things alcohol, which is amazing to dig into once you start learning. I do demos on pruning, and that can also be a workshop. A mindfulness conversation where we really explore ways to feel well in our garden and sort of use gardening and all things plants as a way to foster our wellness. And a really great demonstration that's also popular, Winter in the Blooms, Amaryllis and Paper Whites. So we talk about where these bulbs come from and different ways to display them. And there's lots of take-home things as well. So that one's also a workshop. I do Yankee containers for sun and shade, sort of unusual containers, not just with the standard annuals. Wreaths and swags from scratch. And then again, the mindful garden talk can be also a workshop where you really come away with practical tips. So all of my info is on my website. I do Zoom, in-person, or combination talks, and I'm flexible on dates. I totally understand. I'm actually a public health nurse, so totally get the complexities of living now and scheduling anything. And I kudos to all the program chairs for having to juggle all of this as factors while also having the big job of scheduling for the coming year. I do day and evening meetings, mileage is included, and I'm happy to work on a custom program if that's something that works for you, or there's something that you would have in mind that you don't see here. Thanks so much for having me.
Michelle, thank you for coming, and thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Our next speaker is Betsy Sismak. She's already got her screen share up. Hi, Betsy.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Great to see, well, sort of, I guess, see all of you. The little thumbnail, I guess, has to be something you have to deal with. Thank you very much for making this opportunity available. I did it for the first time last year, like we all did. I just looking back at my notes, and I gave my first ever Zoom Garden Club lecture. It was on May 20th, I think, of 2020, and I've done a lot of Zooming, as all of you have. But there has recently been some in-person lectures, and of course, we all like that much better. I love just about every plant. There are a couple I don't like, Japanese knotweed and Norway maples, but other than that, there's very few that I don't enjoy. I particularly enjoy and I'm very passionate about growing dahlias and begonias. And you might wonder, what do they have in common? And I'm still trying to figure that out, but they're both fun to grow. Okay, now I have to move my slides. So this is me. Because of the pandemic, I was able to do quite a bit of sort of professional enrichment on Zoom. I became a National Garden Club consultant. I was the first class of the Massachusetts Master Gardener associations that did the coursework entirely on Zoom. Fortunately, last summer we were able to do our field work in person. I'm a member of the American Begonia Society, the Buxton branch, and I am a certified judge. I'm also a member of the American Dahlia Society, 4 other branches, and a certified judge. So these are my 2 plant passions. My program particulars: each lecture consists of 45 to 60 minutes of an interactive PowerPoint presentation, 2-page resource handout, and my in-person lecture will always have many demonstration plants. During the dahlia season, it may not be plants, it may be bouquets of flowers, it may be tubers, it may be seedlings. My begonia lectures, I always bring begonias also. I always try to bring something to give away, plants, tubers. I even, at my dahlia lecture last week, gave away the very special tuber marker pencil that you can only get in one place in this country. I have a Zoom account. I can serve as a Zoom host. I still get nervous doing Zoom because of all the technical difficulties that we still seem to have, but I'm happy to do it. So my begonia lectures, this is Begonia Art Hods, which is a hybrid. This is Begonia flocifera, which is a species from India. I have several programs, a begonia for every season. I start out with the summer, go through the seasons, talk about propagation, seed starting, and how to make your begonias that are tricky have a hard time getting through the winter. Some people are interested in foliage, so I have a foliage only lecture. And also I have lots of tips on how to show and grow a blue ribbon begonia. I went to the Newport Flower Show sort of preview meeting last night, and they are having a flower show, and they are going to be plants to enter, so that's very exciting. I also have a propagation workshop for houseplants on Planned Parenthood. So this is again Begonia Art Hods. This is a little tiny begonia from Vietnam called Begonia Hohihana, which is this flower is only about 1/4 of an inch in diameter. And this is another lime green foliage begonia. I talk about begonias in terrariums. Again, this is a very nice begonia called, and I just forgot it. It's a Prismaticarpa hybrid. I'll remember just a minute. Okay, for dahlias, dahlias are maybe a 180 of begonias because you can't grow dahlias all year. You have to wait patiently and do all sorts of things and look forward to the new season. These are all dahlias from my garden. I like to include this particular dahlia because most people think of dahlias as being dinner plates, and dinner plates are great. But if you're interested in pollinators, what you do is you grow open-centered dahlias, and they are bee and butterfly magnets. I always start with this. Oh, these are my programs. I do a gardening with dahlia program, which seems to be most popular. I've given that program 4 times in the past week. But if you have specific questions on what to do with your dahlias each season, and amazingly enough, there is at least an hour worth of programming to talk about each season, I can do that. But this, I always ask people to tell me when they think I took this picture. This picture was taken in my garden on October 14th, 2021. And this is why you grow dahlias, because there's nothing that's going to look like that in a New England garden that late in the season. Every year I pick my most favorite. Again, I really enjoy growing all the different varieties. These are considered open, centered, and pollinator friendly. More pictures of my garden. I even have some friends in my garden, in my water aerobics class, who are competing photography exhibitions, and they come and do a little photo shoot in my garden in October. Now, this year, because in December, my garden club, the Native Garden Club, did not really know in person, not in person, I offered to do a program, a holiday program. When I retired, I had a bucket list of things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do when I was working full time. And one was to go to the White House and actually see the White House decorations. So I did that in 2016. And this was a program that I did. It was a hybrid. We did it in person, but we resumed it, and they showed the White House decorations, and it was really kind of a fun thing to do. Very little prep for that. Didn't bring any plants, and that's that. So I'm really not happy to take questions because I know we have to move on. Thanks very much. You can find my ad in the Mayflower, and you can email me at the address below. Thanks.
Thank you, Betsy. Okay, moving on. Maria von Brinken.
Hi, I'm
There we
looking
go.
forward to sharing my screen. Hi, good to see everybody. I want to say how amazing the presentation has been, all of them, and how interesting all the programs seem. Now, is everybody seeing my slide that says Garden Design Lectures to Inspire and Teach?
Yes, we can see them.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay.
Very happy to see you.
Yes, so am I. Anyway, I'm a professional certified landscape designer, and I've been in practice for over 30 years. And I'm also a passionate gardener and you know, a longtime member of the Sudbury Garden Club. And one of the things that when I first started teaching with slide lectures, the whole idea is to share what I've learned in a way that people can use the information to create their own amazing gardens. And I do a lot of transformative work with my clients. And many of my slides, like the one you see here, are of the gardens that I've designed. I also have slides that I've taken all over the United States in public and private gardens, as well as England and France. Also, I should note that my lectures are updated. In fact, recently I've updated almost all of them with new slides and new diagrams. So while the title may seem the same, if you heard it, you know, 10 years ago, is a totally different lecture now. So one of my first lectures that I want to talk about is my new one, Pollinator Meadow Garden Design. This could be called a natural garden, but a meadow garden is different than a field meadow garden. And again, this is a photo of one of the designs in the late fall. I teach you about layout, and layout's really essential to understand how to lay out plants. So when you have great plant pairings and you understand sequence of bloom, the gardens all look great together and the combinations work. So I show you how to do that and the choice plants and combinations to consider. And again, I feature one particular garden that I designed recently. Winter garden design. I think that's really important because the winter garden, well, you know, New England, it's like 6 months, right? Sometimes. And the neat thing about winter garden, when I start designing gardens, I always start with the winter garden because the winter garden creates the framework. It's the background for the, you know, perennial gardens and other flowering shrubs and trees. And of course, if it's, you know, designed in such a way, even as you can see in this slide, even plants that do not have leaves in the winter look good. And empty spaces look good because of the way that the garden is designed. So I show you again featured plants and bed layout techniques that work in the all seasons. Expand your bloom with flowering trees and shrubs. This happens to be an Elm Bank, Bressingham garden shot. I actually teach there in the fall, the winter and the summer. I teach a plant called the Art of Planting Design. And you can sign up, it's in July. The purpose of this is to give people an idea of plants that work in the home garden, the different kinds of, even recent hydrangeas that tend to be long bloom and smaller stature than some of the others. So as with all my gardens lectures, I start out with what I call the inspiration gardens, which show you gardens that are wonderful. And then I hone into the particular topic, because whatever topic it is, as you know, is just a part of a successful garden. Color gardens, beautiful perennial combinations from spring through frost. So this actually is a picture of a garden in France, just down from the Monet's garden. And I teach you how to create your own color palette and how to use that for plant pairings. And then I show them in the plants from spring through frost, so that if you want to, with a handout, you can just check off the plant combinations from whether it's spring or late fall, and use them exactly as the way I present them. But I also show you how to create your own. And at this point, I should note that all my handouts are detailed, and they are designed not only to be useful during the lecture, so you know where I am and when I'm going to stop, right? But also so that they're a resource for you later, because I jam-pack them with facts as well as and techniques, as well as the names of the plants. Classic vertical gardening, vines that flower up and around. I just actually did this, my first in-person lecture to the Wayland Garden Club Tuesday. It was a lot of fun being in person because I've been doing mostly Zoom lectures and Zoom teaching. But the importance of vertical gardens are that, they bring the flowers above our heads. And this is a picture of my back garden and how this early blooming clematis is climbing up a post, and then it goes over the deck on what I call my sunroom or family room. I spend a little time showing you historical examples, and I show you structures, because the structures are the things that vines grow up, and how they create outdoor rooms, how they mark an entry, how you can use tutors in the middle of a garden to add, in your perennial garden, to add a different height. And then of course I show you hardy vines that work in New England that you can try out on your own. Meant for each other, my favorite foliage combinations. This one was developed, I was asked to do this for one of the New England flower shows. And this is, again, one of my own designs, but it shows you how, even though there's not a lot going on here as far as flowering, there's some daylilies, how interesting a garden can look when you consider foliage. So foliage and the flowers is what, and the shapes, of course, is what makes a garden successful. And so this is about things pictures I've taken just because I'm interested in foliage combinations. So I hope you are intrigued by some of the things I'm talking about. And you go online and book your lectures. You can email me at my new email, mvonbrinken@gmail.com. And know that the goal of all my gardens and teaching is to create places where you are invited to pause and to linger and to take deep breaths and to let yourself have what they call a mini restorative experience by engaging in fascination with plants that you may be seeing or color in a distance and engaging all your senses. So enjoy our spring. We just started spring, and I hope to hear from you, and I'd love to talk to your clubs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. And by the way, we have Maria's that email address in the listing that we've provided to everybody. Okay, so moving on, Rebecca Warner. Rebecca?
Hi, I'm just going to talk without sharing any slides.
Okay.
I'm Rebecca Warner. I'd like to talk to your club about ecological gardening. I've been speaking to garden clubs for 6 years now, and I know that a lot of club members are interested in putting their environmental principles into practice in their gardens. Members tell me they're planting for pollinators or they're growing lots of native plants. My 3 talks focus on adjustments we can make in order to cooperate with natural processes and still have pretty gardens. My first talk looks at nitty-gritty approaches you can take to make your garden more environmentally friendly. I talk about really easy composting and making mulch from free materials that you'll find close to home. I show how you can pot up your container plants without using peat-based potting mix. That's because it turns out that harvesting peat is a major contributor to climate change. Coconut fiber is a new solution for beautiful containers. And I toot the horn for no-till gardening, which is a technique that leaves the carbon in the ground and allows you to skip the sore back when you're planting your annuals and vegetables. Oops. Is somebody sharing their screen? Okay. My second talk is about making gardens hospitable to native plants, to native insects by growing more native plants. We know from Doug Tallamy and others that we need those native plants in order to support biodiversity and to have a thriving garden ecosystems. I talk about how you can strike a balance of the right kinds of insects for your yard, and I tell some truths about choosing the right native plants. I'm sure you've noticed that not every native plant grows effortlessly in every Massachusetts location. And I provide some ways you can tweak your garden routine to make the garden hospitable to pollinators and beneficial insects. My third talk is about how your lawn can reduce pollution and energy use, conserve water, and prevent stormwater runoff, all by shrinking. It's liberating to dig up some of that grass and replace it with more of the plants you love. I enjoy meeting with clubs in person, but I'm prepared to give my talks, my slide talks on Zoom. If you'd like to know more about my approach, please have a look at my book, The Sustainable Enough Garden. It's available on Amazon, or you can have a look at my blog at The Sustainable Enough Garden at blogspot.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, our next speaker is Patterson Webster. Okay, here we go. I'd like to introduce Patterson Webster, who joins us from Glen Villa Art Gardens in Canada. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here with everyone and to have a chance to talk about the talks that I am giving. Thank you for considering me for a speaker. You know, I used to be the program chairman for my garden club in Montreal. And one of the things that was always a challenge was to find program ideas that were special, something new, something that would help us to think about our gardens in new ways. So I've tried to create a series of programs that are a little bit unusual. and that I hope will help all of us thinking about gardens to create memorable gardens. I'd like to just run through them quite quickly. I'm an artist, sculptor, art installations, and one of the talks, you won't be surprised, that I give is about art in the garden. I try to look at 3 basic points. What kinds of materials we can use to create art. Looks at questions about how to position the art within a setting, how to make it look its very best, and why we should use art in our gardens at all, how that using art can really help us to enhance the experience of the garden. For many years, I led garden tours to the UK. And after seeing hundreds and hundreds of gardens there, I've tried to think about what are the special things, what are the things that make English gardens, British gardens, so special. And I've tried to distill a few key ideas about them that I hope we can bring home and use to make our own gardens that little bit better. I also took groups to Italy. Italian gardens and the garden designs are such an important foundation stone for gardens in North America. In this program, I try to look at, again, some of the basic elements that makes those gardens so special. How we can use those to bring those ideas home, not copy them, but adapt them to suit our own circumstances. And also end this program with a few gardens in North America that are using those traditional elements, contemporary elements from Italian gardens in their own home gardens. We all visit gardens. Who doesn't like it? It's a wonderful, pleasant way to pass the time, but there's so much that we can learn from visiting gardens. So in this program, Learning to Look, the Art of Garden Observation, I go through some very easy steps about how we can prepare for a visit, how we can take full advantage of the time that we're at the garden, and then how we can use the things that we've learned afterwards to, again, to make our own gardens the best that they can be. I like all of those programs, but my very favorite program is the one about my own home garden. I start with a beautiful country site, and I try to, over the years, I have used the history of the site, art and architecture to try and create something which is a little bit different, very special. In terms of the way in which I use flowers, the way in which I use flowering trees, wildflowers. I'm a big fan of wildflowers, and I've incorporated them into the garden in a number of ways. There's a lot to see in my garden, including art. This is a piece that a sculpture that I created once after an old maple tree died, and it's called Tree Rings. You can think perhaps about the age of the tree when you see that. I have a book coming out this summer about the garden, so I'll be traveling even more than usual. I have a daughter that lives in Boston and grandchildren and a son-in-law who are all in Boston, so I love coming to Massachusetts, and I would be delighted to share my ideas and to share yours if you were kind enough and thoughtful enough to invite me to speak at your club. There's an easy way to get in touch, and I look forward to meeting and seeing all of you one of these days, I hope. Thank you.
Karen Stanley, thank you so much. It's so great to see so many presenters. I haven't seen you in a few years, and to see some new ones, and thanks to the Garden Federation for organising this. Yes, I too have enjoyed doing Zoom lectures, but I've done maybe 7 in live ones recently, and it's been really fantastic. And I suppose because it's March, one of my popular lectures is on the Irish garden. Again, I refresh my lectures constantly. I'm just back from Ireland about a month ago. And so I have maybe five or six different lectures. And if you want to see a more in-depth explanation on the Garden Federation website, there is a link to the video, which we had an opportunity to do in the past, which will give you more in-depth info on each lecture. So my lectures are on the Irish garden, the Scottish garden, sculpture in the garden, art and spirit in the garden, creating the inner quiet garden room, and the garden in poetry. This sort of crosses over all my disciplines. I am a graduate of the Landscape History and Design program at Radcliffe. I have been an artist all my life, and I've been creating sculpture since 1995. My work is in various places, from the Mass Hort to Wellesley College, globally. I'm a sometimes poet, and so I kind of interface a lot of these disciplines. So the lecture on the Irish garden came about when people were asking me to differentiate between the English and the French garden. So it's basically a gallop around the Irish garden, where I unfold the story of the chronological development of the Irish garden. We have the Gulf Stream, so we have a fantastic range of plants. And so we talk plants, history, and I bring you right up to date with who the big players are on the Irish scene. So it's a sort of one of those really intense armchair, I guess, gallops around the garden. So I would love to be able to move well, it won't move on. Okay, so, okay, that's Irish garden. And actually, I'm just back a few weeks ago. That's from Altamont, one of the most romantic gardens you'll ever see. My next lecture is the Glorious Gardens of Scotland. It's sort of similar to the Irish garden. It kind of goes from the heathers to the highlands, between, Outlander and Shetland and all these things we see on television. I do a deep dive into why the Scottish are really supreme at their walled gardens, their orchards, again, with their diverse climate. We kind of go through the history and development and their passion for parterres. Again, more details on the video on the website. Here is actually a fabulous parterre. They're really into more ornamental bedding out parterres. This is in Lord Palmer's Place, Manderson Hall. I am a sculptor, and I am very passionate about sculpture in the garden. This is more of a how-to. As a garden designer, I really talk in depth about how you think about sculpture, how you find that place. We talk plants, lighting, positioning, installation. I look at a lot of other people's work and some of my own, and then I've done workshops with, whether it's a church, a healing garden, a temple, a personal garden. There is a sort of mindful, deep approach to sculpture in the garden, because it's about creating that focal point and enhancing the garden. Art and spirit in the garden, creating the inner quiet garden room, really combines a lot of my inspirations. Again, we all see gardens from around the world. I especially see a lot when I've done garden tours in the past. I only go to Ireland, Scotland, occasionally Wales. I really don't go anywhere else, but I look at gardens all around the world. So I kind of gather my inspirations, and I show you how to organize yourself into a deeper place where you can create your own design vernacular within the garden. We all have another space within the garden where we can create another place. And that is kind of the incubus of my talk. And I bring in poetry, other gardens, and again, back to the basics: lighting, plants, paving, all of the elements that you need to do. So this is a real how-to, and it sort of shapes, it's a different type of shaped talk. So the poetry in the garden and the garden in poetry.
So I'd like to now welcome Suzanne Mahler, who's going to talk to us about her gardening programs. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you, Jill. I would certainly like to thank both you and Betsy for all your efforts. It certainly has been a challenge, but the program workshop is very valuable. I am also program chairman for my garden club, and I rely on this to find my ideas for new speakers as well. So thank you for all your efforts and the reboots and everything you've had to do to make this all possible. My name is Suzanne Mahler, as you can see. I have been a passionate gardener for 45 years and have had the privilege of sharing my passion with garden clubs and other organizations throughout the New England area for over 30 years. I am past president of the New England Daylily Society, one of my collections that I can't resist, in addition to having spoken at spring flower shows, Art and Bloom at the MFA, the Environmental Protection Agency. I work part-time at a garden center to support my plant habit, which my husband refers to as negative income. But I really enjoy sharing my passion, open my garden to the public during July, and talk on quite a wide range of topics, which I'm going to blaze through a little of each one, starting with Get Ready for Spring. This program includes, one of the most popular parts of this program have been sharing my various tools that I enjoy and find most helpful in doing all my yard work on my 1.5 acre property by myself. So these tools I usually bring in live presentations for demonstration, and we talk about the tools. I cover pruning of trees in the spring, which this is Get Ready for Spring, by the way. And I bring a branch or two to illustrate in person, but also talk about the different kinds of things and when you should prune them. It also includes dividing perennials and when they should be divided and how you can divide them. But it's become one of my most popular programs at this time of the year, just because it is the season to get underway. Flowering trees and shrubs for the home landscape is another program. I start off with winter interest and forms, and I like to show plants and trees and shrubs that have more to offer than just pretty flowers. Their forms in the winter, their flowers, but also their bark and what they look like when they're full grown, where to grow them, how to prune them. It's a very colorful presentation. This happens to be my very favorite tree of all, and I'm drawing a blank on what it's called, but it is absolutely gorgeous, and you can see it has multiple seasons of interest with the beautiful flowers that look like camellias. Stewardia pseudocamellia, the beautiful red-orange foliage in the fall, and that magnificent bark that just is so pretty year-round. I am very much a butterfly and pollinator lover, and I grow many, many native plants and a lot of plants specifically for the butterflies and the bees, which not all of them are that pretty. Needless to say, everyone loves butterflies, and echinacea certainly is one of the top plants for them in my yard and is technically native, although maybe not native to New England. Bees also have become very important to us, and most of the bees I show are native bees rather than the European honeybee, which is, most people don't realize is not a native bee, but lots of bee pictures, and kind of an accidental pollinator are hummingbirds, which again, everyone loves to see. So this one includes critters, sometimes the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I do include critters, especially my frogs. I have a little water garden, and I have trained frogs that as soon as they see me coming, they jump out and wait for me to feed them worms. So I show a lot of other wildlife in this presentation, and not all are so welcome. Designing a garden for all seasons has become very popular in the last 2 years, and it takes us from winter through the fall with trees, shrubs, and perennials that make the seasons better, starting with the red twig dogwoods, which are native. Can't beat the spring flowering bulbs, especially the ornamental onions. Hellebores, not native, but they are in full bloom in my garden right now and are just absolutely spectacular. And most have evergreen foliage. Bearded iris were my first passion. I've cut back a little, but they're just so pretty in June. I do have a lot of shade now after 45 years of planting trees and shrubs, and shade gardens do not have to be boring. And this is one of mine that used to be full of sun. Daylilies, I already mentioned my addiction to daylilies. So this is actually a public garden out west, but the Berkshire Botanical Garden, but I do love the daylilies. And for the fall, we have the fall blooming asters, some of which are native, the two on the left and the one on the right is non-native, but the bees and the butterflies love these. And speaking of natives, Know and Grow native plants includes plants that I consider native to the not necessarily just New England area, it depends on how much of a purist you are, but native plants that will survive New England winters. So echinacea, one of my favorite shrubs is, looks like little bottle brushes. And I'm drawing a blank on this one too, as I'm trying to go through this too quickly. But it smells like sweet honey, Fothergilla. And it really is a neat one. And one comes with blue foliage. Another native late blooming plant is Clethris, sweet. I can't remember. And this one is one of my favorite new plants in my yard. It grows native in my town in Hanover, Mass, and it is called buttonbush. And you can see that it has funky little Sputnik-like flowers, and the pollinators love it. And that forms these little stiff, hard red berries. So it's kind of a neat plant, but that's all part of the native program and many more to see. For perennials, you have your bloodroot, which is it's just starting to look like it's going to bloom fairly shortly. Bee balm is native and pollinators love it. Turtlehead, a personal favorite with its cute little turtle-like heads and beautiful shining green foliage. This is one that's new in my garden and I just can't get enough of it. It is called Indian pink, although it's really red. And everyone who's gone through the garden just absolutely can't, it's called Spigelia, botanical name. Eupatorium, which has a new name, but Joe Pyeweed grows native on my property. I have a wetlands meadow and this goes crazy all over my yard, but it's absolutely gorgeous and pollinators love it later in the summer, as they do the asters, which were actually native in my yard when I moved in as well. Putting the garden to bed is just the end of the season with similar traits to the get ready for spring. I do cover dividing perennials that are happy to be divided in the fall, and not all of them are, but peonies especially prefer fall pruning, and I show what they look like undressed and discuss how to divide them and other perennials. Obviously, it's time to plant the time to plant bulbs, and again, there's some pruning, but most of that I wait until spring. One of my other popular programs is Great Public Gardens of New England, and I go from one side of Massachusetts to the other and a little bit up to the north to New Hampshire and Maine. This is at, well, I'll come to it. Garden in the Woods is the first one I hit every spring. Used to be, it's now called Native Plant Trust, but it used to be New England Wildflower Society, and I love going there early in the spring as I grew up in the Catskills, and you'll see trilliums and lady slippers and all kinds of early spring bloomers. They offer great lectures and a great gift shop, and they sell native plants, so they have a nice supply of native plants. I also do a program that includes the Mount Auburn Cemetery. I'm sure many of you have been there, and if you're a birder, it's a must go-to place. The the gardens at Elm Bank, the Massachusetts Horticultural Society garden, which has a new leader, and hopefully we're getting our act together and is going to be absolutely fabulous this summer. And I'm an overseer for Mass Hort. Tower Hill Botanic Garden is another favorite. I attend a lot of lectures there, and it's also where the Daedalus Society and the Hostas Society meet. And a really well-planned garden with beautiful, beautiful gardens. This is a new public garden, and I highly urge people to visit Bedrock Gardens up in Lee, New Hampshire. It is the most unique public garden I've ever been to. John Forty, that used to be at numerous other locales in New England, is the director, and it has the most fun sculptures throughout the garden, all made by one of the owners, from metal, like old tractors, and a sense of humor and beautiful, what I would call garden rooms. Last but not least is Coastal Maine Botanical Garden. And this is it is a newish public garden, and it's already in the top 10 in the country. It's in Booth Bay Harbor. Go there if you get the chance. It is absolutely spectacular. Everything is mass plantings, and I just can't wait to get back there. I always go up there in the month of August. So that is the end of my images. I would like to say that you can find my information either on my website, suzannemaller.com, or in the Mayflower, or this production that we have just arranged. And again, thank you to Jill for letting me have a second chance. And that's it.
Ann Pearson?
Okay, let's give this a try. I'll give the screen share a try.
Oh God, we're having such luck with it today. I don't know.
Can you see that now?
Yes, we can see that.
Yay! Okay.
Okay.
So I did my little intro onto who I am, and I know, time is of the essence here. So there's contact information. I'll try and put it in the chat for you. You can look at my website. You can get my phone number from there. You can shoot me an email. So I offer, I have a Gorgeous Gardens of New England series, and similar to the last presenter, probably because of my background, my focus in gardens is not just plant materials. I see plant materials as one element in a garden design. So these gardens that that I share with you, I have 4 different presentations. I really want to inspire you to look beyond just the plants, or to see plants as just a tool within the overall garden design. I travel around New England in these presentations for the Gorgeous Gardens. I talk about design. I also talk a lot about the history of the development of the gardens, some of the major players throughout the years in the garden. And when I was a landscape architect, one of the big players in this area, the firm of Olmsted, that was still in existence when I was a landscape architect. And they spanned a great number of years. I show a variety of gardens. Most of them are public gardens that you can go visit. And I guarantee you that there are going to be public gardens that you've never heard of that I feature. And some like this one that you probably have been to. But I have what I call my secret gardens. And for each one of these presentations, I have a map specific to that presentation that shows you the location of the garden and the name of the gardens that we're discussing in that one. So you may be, if you're planning a trip, you can see that there's a garden in New Hampshire and Vermont that are very close to each other from this presentation. Next, I do garden design, a deeper dive. And in this presentation, I look at gardens as now I'm going outside of New England, and I'm looking at both private and public gardens. But I go through sort of broadly the attributes and pitfalls, if you're designing for yourself, of a formal garden versus a more informal garden. We look at individual design elements. So there's a section on hardscape, what you're walking, the surface underneath your feet. And when I look at these and talk about them, I talk about the cost of installation, maintenance of them, what you might conceivably do by yourself without having somebody come in and literally do them for you. I talk about vertical features and focal points. They can be plant material or it can be a man-made element. They're key in garden design. I talk about color and repetition. I don't get like heavy duty into the color wheel, but I do talk about the different sort of themes with color and pairing different colors, and how repetition in garden design is a wonderful thing. It leads you through, leads your eye and leads you, if you're visiting, through the garden, and it unifies different areas of the garden and really adds emphasis and interest to the garden. And part of this is a way that you can take inspiration for what you're seeing, and how do you translate that into your own property or onto your own property. Next is fragrance in the garden. And I start off talking about what fragrance and what creates the fragrance, which are VOCs, volatile organic compounds, what they actually do for the plants. And of course, I think we all think, well, they attract pollinators. But another fascinating thing that those VOCs do is they protect the plants from predators. And they can also, one plant, through putting a scent out, can protect another plant from predators that might want to eat them. I talk about trees, shrubs, flowers, and herbs. I also talk about where do you place these strategically in your garden so you can get the most enjoyment out of them. And it might be things that, you know, you haven't really thought about, like putting night flowering scented plants underneath the window where your bedroom is. Or in this case, this is in downtown Boston in the Beacon Hill area. Maybe you select certain plants that in your window box, right outside your window, you open your window, and how delightful that is, especially in early spring. I also talk about the nighttime pollinators and the flowers that bloom in the evening hours. For this presentation, I have a handout that has the list of all the plants that I talk about. And then my last presentation, because I am a photographer now, of course, is creating beautiful garden photographs. And I do talk a little bit about techie stuff with cameras, but that's a very small part of it. I hope that people walk out of this presentation, and regardless of the camera equipment that they use, they're going to be thinking about garden photography in a new way, and that it will improve their garden photography and even their photography overall. I talk about the time of day to shoot, having an intention when you go to shoot. I think it helps you to see your garden in a different way. You might go visit a garden where there's this intimate little spot like you see here with the chairs set up and all the grasses creating this intimate spot. And you might think, well, I can do this. You're looking because it's beautiful when you're there. And then you go home and you look at the picture you shot and you think, I could do this at my house. So I want it to be inspiring. I talk about the techniques I use to create a more artistic image. Here you're seeing it's a very, there's a distinct focus. It's a shallow, it's referred to as a shallow depth of field, but I purposely, just for an artistic reason, want you to just focus in. I want this part to be sharp. I'm using the same technique here. And here, using the lighting in the best way that you can, so that in this instance, you can see the delicacy of the petals of these tulips, of the single petals. And this is really just knowing how to use the light. And this I shot at not the time of day I like to shoot on a bright sunny day. This was maybe 10:30 in the morning at Tower Hill, but I made the most I could of a time of day when the lighting on a bright sunny day is really not the best for shooting. And doing those overall garden shots, getting the focal point. I talk about getting down lower, standing up on something so you have a different view. Maybe you're taking an overhead kind of shot. So I think, and all the little garden denizens, every aspect of a garden and a landscape. I do Zoom presentations and I do in-person presentations. And for the Zooms, everything, all the handouts are available as a PDF. And I hope you will get in touch with me. And thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Okay, message is being recorded. Just ignore it. Delete it.
If I do, I will have to stop share to go back and stop play, go back and remove it, and then come back on again.
Okay.
Is
We
that
can edit around it, but we're recording now. So let's get going. Okay, so I'd like to now welcome Sally Musprat, who is here to talk to us about all of her gardening lectures. Welcome, Sally.
Thank you, Jill. And thanks to Betsy and Lynn for all they did to make this program work. Stu Stewart Smith's wonderful book, The Well-Gardened Mind, was a great help to me in focusing my talks during this difficult year. I gained a new understanding of how different types of gardens can give us strength as we navigate the unexpected crises of disease and war. 3 topics grounded in the restorative power of nature seem to resonate especially strongly with our members this year. The enclosed garden, screened from its neighbors, with the owner's personal version of paradise as its center. The shady garden, a green, peaceful refuge from stress. And the bright flower garden, a joyous affirmation of life. Here are glimpses of 4 of these talks. Transforming personal space from backyard to garden. Enclosing a garden with trees and shrubs and sometimes with berms is a first step in making a garden one's own. Members working from home appreciated that just outside their back doors, they could arrange and enter their vision of the natural world, far from the problems pouring through their computers. I do love enclosing properties with trees and shrubs and erasing the neighbors. And I love building berms. Shade gardening. Focusing on peaceful green plantings is especially appealing in difficult times. I present ways to build thriving gardens in unpromising areas like the north sides of houses and the dark, bare places under maple trees. Rethinking uses for annuals. Another effective reaction to stress is to make glorious bursts of color with plantings of annual flowers and vegetables. This was my favorite garden of last year, starting in March with nothing, a gravel hillside, and by September, having a flower-filled garden with vegetables, pumpkins, flowers. It was fun. The last garden I'm going to mention today is Frank Cabot's Les Quatre Vents in Quebec. This virtual walk through the beautifully arranged, contrasting spaces of amazing gardens is a respite in itself, but it also shows us plants we can grow and design techniques we can try in our own gardens. Do invite me to speak in the coming year. I love talking with you about ways you can make your garden vision a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. That was lovely. Okay.
Thank you. Now.